Hello, it's me again, back to talk about what it's like being a young widow. I want to have this video be about my feelings directly following the accident. I'm talking like the couple of weeks afterwards. I don't really want to touch on the fact that I was injured in the accident as well. I want to do that in its own separate video. Right after the accident, it was just this overwhelming loneliness. I was in a room full of people pretty much at all times because I had so many good friends and family who wanted to support me, but I always felt alone. I was completely cut in half. It felt like I lost the other half of me, and once you get used to being with somebody constantly and they are just ripped away from you so unexpectedly, it just crumbles your whole world and it makes you question everything. So in the weeks after the accident, it was just overwhelming loneliness. No matter how many people were in the room with me at any given time, it was just complete isolation. I felt completely disconnected from everyone and like nobody truly understood me. And in a way, I was kind of just angry at everyone, angry at the world because I lost the other half of my heart. In the beginning, the biggest thing that I could think about was wanting to kill myself. That's all I wanted to do. And honestly, when I was on the way home from the hospital, I was completely at peace with the thought of dying. I just didn't want to exist in a world where he didn't exist anymore. But I could never bring myself to do it. Every day just kind of seemed like my whole existence was just trying to work up the courage to kill myself. You have your whole entire life built around one person and you have your entire future planned with that person. You never think that it could just be completely ripped from you. I had to grieve the future that we should have had. We were supposed to get married and buy a house and have kids and grow old and die together. And all of that was stolen from me and stolen from him. And I had to find what my new normal was going to look like. I was in deep denial in the beginning. I really truly thought that I could find a way to bring him back. I researched time travel and resurrection spells, and I did everything that I could think of. I was just completely desperate to try to give myself some kind of false hope. I thought that if I prayed hard enough that I could get him back, or that I could turn back time and I could fix everything. I actually went as far as enlisting other people to help me try to bring him back. I wanted time, I wanted everything to just stop. I didn't want anything to happen. I didn't want anyone to advance in their life past what he got to see because everything just felt so wrong without him and so unfair. I remember that the first time that it snowed after the accident, that was incredibly difficult for me because even though he didn't like snow, it was still time passing and seasons changing and he wasn't going to be here to see any of it. I was completely uninterested in any kind of life without him. I didn't even want to try to be happy. There was no point to me. Everything was just completely meaningless and completely useless, and if I would just lay there and rot, I would be perfectly fine with that. I had tons of visitors after I got out of the hospital, which was very nice, but everybody looked at me with such a sadness in their eyes that broke my heart, and it made me want to comfort them, and I know that that's not how they ever meant it, but it felt like everybody just felt really sorry for me. And I understand that because I felt sorry for me too, but I wanted people to treat me like me because I was afraid that I wasn't going to know how to be myself anymore without him. I didn't know how to be on my own and not be Will's girlfriend. I was putting the minimal amount of effort into living. I was going through all the motions, but I didn't care anymore. I didn't care about anything. I was completely done with life and with a world without Will. It was an extremely slow healing process, and it's still a process. It's unpredictable. That's the way that grief is. Sometimes I'll have a really good few days in a row, and then I would just fall apart. I would start to have a couple of good days in a row where I would get out of bed and I could go a day or two in a row without crying, and then I would hear a song that made me think of him, or I would just think of some random memory that we had and I would just completely lose it. I had an extremely hard time looking at pictures of him or seeing any kind of picture of him, but one of my widow friends that I met in the very beginning said that it really helped her to just look at pictures of him every day, even if it was just only for a minute or two, just to look at pictures every day and to slowly build up to being able to see pictures of him. And that's kind of what I forced myself to do, because I knew that at his funeral there were going to be lots of pictures and I didn't want to completely break down at his funeral. I started trying to find new routines that I could put myself into since all of my routines were shattered. I started telling one of my friends everything I did that day, even if it was just cry all day. I would still find it in myself every day to tell him what I did that day. I also made it a habit to start saying goodnight to people every night, because I would always say goodnight to Will every night and I didn't have anyone to do that with after the accident. So I started just telling all of my friends goodnight before I went to sleep, because it was some kind of normal routine that I could be in. I remember that the first time that I laughed at something, I started crying immediately after, because I felt very guilty for being able to laugh at something. Every day was a new challenge and every day was just a roller coaster of emotion. I started to feel like my life was just a sad story and I wasn't really truly a part of it. It was just a sad story that people heard about. I had no choice but to pick up the pieces of my broken heart and my broken life and try to make something out of it. The only other option was to end my life, and I couldn't do that. I could never bring myself to do that. So at some point I realized that it was time to start really actually putting a little bit of effort in and try to find some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. It was a very slow process, and it's still a process. I still have my days where I can't pull myself together, and I think that I'm going to have that for years to come, if not the rest of my life. But the biggest part of it all is that I'm trying. I'm trying my very best, and I'm doing my very best with what I've been given, and that's all you can really do. And I know that I am going to be in love with him until the day that I die, but I know that I am strong enough to do this. I know that I am strong enough to live a life without him. This is not what I wanted. This isn't what anyone would want, but this is what I was given. And I'm doing my very best, and I'm surprising myself. I surprise myself every day, and I think that a lot of people in this situation will surprise themselves every day, because you don't realize how strong you can be. You don't realize how much you can actually handle until you have no other choice. I used to think of myself as just this completely weak person, completely codependent, and I know that I still have a long way to go, but I know that I'm so much stronger than when I first started, and I know that he would be incredibly proud of me and incredibly proud of all the progress that I've made. I think it's really important when you're having a really hard day, when you're really struggling extra, to reach out to someone, to make it known that you need extra help. That's okay. And you're going to have days that you need extra help, but that's the way that your life is now, and there's no way around it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me, and I will see you next time.